What does being a man mean to you?
What does being a man mean to me? Being a man means facing your responsibilities, doing that which is good for the common good. That is being a man. It has nothing to do with strength. It has nothing to do with virility. It has to do with attitude.
I agree. Describe your mother and sisters to me.
Well, I had one mother and 4 sisters.
Yes.
To describe them, it could take all day, but I'll try to be brief. My mother was about 5'8". She was a fairly large woman. Her weight varied. She was sometimes too thin and other times much too heavy. She was Swiss, and her maiden name was Kessler, Anna Kessler. And she had a temper, but she was probably one of the most generous, kind women you'd ever meet. And she loved her family very much. She was also pretty, I thought. My 4 sisters were Rosalie, Pauline, Connie, and Mary Lou. They were all named after their aunts. They were great sisters. They all loved and protected me, and I loved and protected them as well. Rosalie was the tallest. She was probably 5'8", maybe 5'9". And Pauline was the smallest. She was about 5'1". And the rest of them were in between. They all married. They all had wonderful lives. Rosalie died at the age of 90. Pauline died at the age of 88. Connie died at the age of 79. And Mary Lou and I are still kicking around. My sisters are wonderful. They were always great to their brother.
Mm-hmm.
And they were smart.
Yes. Can you tell me some of your favorite stories between your interactions with your mom and sisters? I know it's hard.
Oh my, there are so many. That's what makes it hard. Well, I could tell stories about my mother all day long, but my mother loved me with a passion, but she would also be rather severe with me if I stepped out of line. But after giving me a spanking as a young kid, she would usually hold me in her arms and sing to me, and I never minded getting the spankings because I knew that she loved me, and that was the most important thing. My sister Rosalie, there was one time I was about 13. Rosalie was about 25 at the time, 12 years older than I. I got into a fist fight with a boy in the schoolyard, which was a couple of houses, or a couple of hundred feet from our house. And I was winning the fight, and the mother happened to be watching out the window, the mother of the boy. And she came down and grabbed a bat out of the schoolyard and chased me, swinging the bat. She was going to catch me and whack me with that bat, I was sure. So I took off running for home. Thank God I was faster than she was. Standing in front of our house was my sister Rosalie. Rosalie was tall and very thin. This woman was a big, big woman, heavy. And I ran behind my sister Rosalie, and the woman came up to her, and Rosalie put her hand out and said, "That's my brother. If you have a problem with him, you talk to me, put that bad away. So my sister Rosalie protected me. I love that, and I never forgot that story. I also remember my sister Rosalie being so smart. She gave me my first book to read. So many things I could tell you about Rosalie. Connie was closest to me in age. She was 6 years older than I. She always resented the fact that being the only boy in the family, I got more attention from my dad than she thought I should have got. She wanted that attention from her father, and I took it away. But my sister Connie was a wonderful, wonderful sister. Pauline was probably the sweetest of all four of my sisters. She never finished high school, and she married a crazy man who I loved very much named Frank. He was very good to me as well as my sisters. Pauline was very pretty. Mary Lou was my little sister, and as a kid she was very scrawny, had knobby knees, and I always felt sorry for her, but she grew into a beautiful woman. She was very stubborn, and she would get me into a great deal of trouble with my mother. If she and I got into an argument, I either did what she wanted me to do, or she would pretend that we were fighting, and my mother would come in and give both of us lickings. So she got her way most of the time.
Mm-hmm. So you kind of touched on this, but because of a female-dominated family, how did that affect your relationship with your dad?
There was no man greater than my dad. He was my hero. Mm-hmm. If anything, the fact that I was the only boy meant that he could dwell on me more than he might have dwelled on some family where there were 3 boys. Every time he went hunting, every time he went fishing, I was his partner. Mm-hmm. We did a lot of things together. He was a very kind and gentle man. He never struck me. I never heard him swear. And he was Italian too. But he was my hero. He was what I wanted to be when I grew to be a man.
Mm-hmm. How did growing up with women help shape you into becoming a man? I know your father helped.
Well, I learned to respect women. I learned to love women. I did feel that I had to protect women, which meant I had to be kind to them, I had to be considerate. And I think I always was. As a matter of fact, if I were not, I think any one of the 4 of them would have given me an awful lot of grief. So I grew up thinking women were smart. All of my sisters were very smart. They were at least as smart as I was. They were honest. They were great sisters. They were good people.
So yeah, do you think growing up with females made you significantly different than other men in your generation who may not have had the same experience?
I think so.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, most women tell me that I treat them differently than most guys. I have a tendency to listen to women, which most of them think is important. So many of my friends, they seem to know everything and never give their girlfriends or their wives a chance to talk. I think that's important, that someone listen and respect what they're hearing. Mm-hmm. Hopefully I treat women better than most men.
Describe what it's like to only have one grandson and even all daughters and all female grandchildren.
Well, I'll start by saying I had 3 daughters.
Right.
and a mother, and yes, I grew up in a very female-dominated family situation. But when I got married, I married a woman. I have to say that today because you can do anything you want to. But I married a lovely woman, Jackie, and when we had children, everyone thought I would want a boy. I wanted the first one to be a girl, and I got Julie. And I fell in love with Julie. 2 years later, Jackie got pregnant again, and everybody thought I wanted a boy for sure this time. And I went to church and I prayed that it be another little girl so she would have a sister to play with. And also another girl to love their father as Julie loved her. Certainly we had another girl, we had Christine. Then, about 8 years later, Jackie got pregnant again, and now everyone was convinced that I had to want a boy. Well, I went to church this time and I got down on my knees and I prayed for a third girl. And each time I got the biggest gift I could have possibly got. Raising girls was fantastic. It's all I could ever have hoped for. As far as the grandkids, I'm glad I've got the experience of having one boy. But I would have been just as happy if we had had 9 girls and 1 boy. The one boy only for the experience. And I find that he is just as wonderful as the girls. And probably easier to control than the girls.
All right. So what does being a father or even a grandfather mean to you?
Oh, being a father is, if you're a good father, is the most wonderful thing in the world. You just can't imagine the feeling when your children are young of wanting to get home from work so you could see what they did during the day. So you could see how they were growing, how they were learning. At times it probably aggravated your grandmother that I was so interested when I came home in what the kids had done all day rather than what she had done all day. But we had our time when I could ask that too. But having young girls in the house, being a father was wonderful. I had a responsibility to make sure that they were all independent and sound thinking people. It was important to both your grandmother and I that whatever were our kids, they had to contribute to the community. We wanted people who would contribute to others. And I think we did that. And the same thing is true with grandchildren. I am so proud of all of my grandkids. Being a grandfather has been a delight. Not just the baseball games and the soccer games and the field hockey games, but just watching them grow and experiencing the love that they give their grandfather is amazing. I don't know what I'd do without it.
Don't know what we would do without you either, Grandpa. Yeah. So we'll finish off with what quality of women in your life are you most thankful for?
The best quality that was certainly present in your grandmother and was present in all of your mother and your aunts is they're all considerate and giving people. Your grandmother and I both felt that we were put on earth to serve others. And all of my daughters feel the same way. They're here for a reason, and that reason isn't for themselves and selfish things, but to give to others. I hope my grandchildren are all going to proceed in the same way. My mother.
Okay.
My mother was a very poor girl, lived in a very small town, And they had 9 people in her family. My father also had 9 siblings. They had no money. And so when the girls got to 3rd grade, the girls were taken out of school and sent to farms to work. So their education of all of my aunts on my mother's side never went beyond 3rd grade. They then went and worked helping farm people with their chores and doing kitchen things for the farmer's wife. And then they would bring food with them home on the weekends, and the whole family would get together on the weekends. Well, for someone having a 3rd grade education, she did things a lot differently than I did, but she was smart. She would also determined. She would sit next to me as I was doing my algebra or geometry homework, with her elbows on the table, watching everything I put down on paper. And one day I said to her, "Mom, you have no idea what I'm doing here." She said, "Oh yeah, you're doing your homework, and I'm making sure you're doing your homework. I don't know whether it's right or wrong, but I'm making sure you do what you're supposed to do." And I thought that was great. But she was smart. My father was very smart too. I loved them both very much.
Yeah.
My father died at the age of 69. My mother died at the age of 74. So I have been graced by God with living longer than both of them, and thank God I still have pretty good health.
Yes, thank God for that.
Yeah. Now, what is this all about?
I'm just asking you questions about the females in your life.
You're asking questions about what men think about women.
No, I'm not. It's not totally right. It's just...
I happen to be surrounded with women, so I'm prejudiced. I love women.
No, it's more like how living with females has affected you. And
I don't know.
it's a hard question.
I couldn't have got through life without women. Women really made me what I am. Most women I've encountered in my life have been very smart. I think most of them have more common sense than I do. And I've loved them for it.